I guess it's just me so far. Hey everyone, happy post-Thanksgiving show. Excited to see everyone here today, and it looks like we'll might have Mike joining us here in a second. Until then, exciting episode, just like we talked about last week. Oh, there we go. Having a happy Monday, Mike. See that you made it. Maybe an alarm clock didn't go off in time.
Yeah, happy Cyber Monday. I was so distracted doing online shopping. I was a minute late here.
Love it. Well, if you want to go ahead and take the ad, and we'll start from there. And then, yeah, we've got a lot of interesting statistics for the holiday season, you could say, this weekend for everyone.
Yeah, a lot to go over for sure. So, welcome to the Stockout. This is your show for CPG and retail industry. I'm Mike Baudendistel, head of intermodal solutions at SONAR, joined by Grace Fraud Watch Sharkey. So, Grace, what can you tell us about Fraud Watch?
Yeah, so for everyone out there, of course, join our newsletter if you haven't. Head to FreightWaves.com, click on newsletters at the top of the screen. But on top of that, sign up for an extra newsletter this week. We have a new newsletter coming out. I think it's on its fourth week this week now, called Fraud Watch, and it's pretty much exactly like you hear. We've got a ton of stories coming out more and more on fraud in the industry, and I think in particular, for everyone watching this show, we're seeing a huge uptick in the retail sector as well. And of course, a lot of the warehouse movement that we see between, of course, the suppliers and CPG companies and retailers out there as well. So, of course, we're dedicating a newsletter to touching a lot of those interesting topics. Again, not just in kind of the fields that we're talking about in this show, but also in the trucking industry and various other areas of crime throughout the industry as well. And excited actually to jump on this topic here to begin the show because, of course, there's a lot of interesting statistics that have come out over this past week when getting ready for, of course, the holiday season. In this last week's newsletter, we covered actually a CargoNet Thanksgiving study. So, past to compare past Thanksgivings in 2023. Wow, what year is it? In 2023, we saw over 174 total theft incidents on Thanksgiving alone. Most of those coming from California. Of course, biggest targets on there are warehouse distribution centers for the truck drivers out there. Parking lots is a huge one as well, and then just when you think you're safe in your own yard, truck stops as well were a big one too. Two other states in particular, of course, Texas and Illinois, not surprised to see those ones take a big hit during the Thanksgiving weekend. And what are they grabbing? Well, food and beverage is always a hot one. It's usually easier to move depending on palletized and how sophisticated the crime members are as well. But of course, being the holiday, we saw a ton of household goods and electronics stolen over the past Thanksgiving in 2023, up to about $7.8 million of goods stolen. So for this audience out here, what can you do to watch this? Well, of course, join the Fraud Watch newsletter. That's a big place you guys can all start. But just a few tips because we do, of course, have multiple weeks now coming up of holiday shopping. That means holiday goods moving across the United States for all you brokers out there. You can start with you. Make sure you guys are being diligent in your due diligence process. So you're checking all of your boxes and be especially watchful near the end of the day. A lot of this stuff is going to, especially the smart guys, are going to call you for that last minute load at the end of the day, going into a holiday weekend, hoping that your guard is down. So watch out for those. Also watch out for fuel advance scams. That's pretty popular for brokers to fall for during this holiday. For your drivers out there, of course, make sure you got everything on hand, VIN numbers, license plate numbers, container numbers in case anything's stolen. Secure all of your trailers, even if it's unattached, use the kingpin locks. Of course, use padlocks, keep everything secured. Stay rested. That's a huge one. Of course, if something's going to happen, we want to make sure that you're mindful of course, your surroundings. So stay rested. Know where you're parking. Park in familiar places. Fuel up to avoid any extra time with the trailer off or of course any unattended trailer time, avoid that too. And for shippers out there, warehouse managers, make sure your facilities are up to date, including lighting. You'd hate to have something stolen, go to the camera footage for it, and you can't see anything. So make sure lighting and surveillance equipment is all up to date this holiday season. Be sure to hide any extra keys, security codes to buildings. Never treat an alarm like a false alarm during this season as well. Honestly, that should be through all seasons for talking, fire alarms, etc. Be mindful of those. Make sure documentation is all up to date, and encourage as well any suspicious activity. Make sure that's documented, and make sure you partner with your local police. Ask them to make routine checks on buildings and facilities during downtime during the holidays. And Mike, hopefully, if we can take those steps, we won't see too much fraud during the season. But I think you and I both know with such a crunch time, whenever we see demand go up for those trucks, the more trucks are on the road, we're going to see more fraud with it too. So yeah, go check out the Fraud Watch and join that newsletter as well.
Yeah, lots of overlap between, I think, that audience and the Stockout audience. And if we really do get into a tight freight market next year, that I think increases that risk because you're just so frantic to get those loads moved. Maybe you don't take all those diligence steps that you really should take. I also want to encourage people to sign up for the Stockout newsletter. If you're not signed up already, you can go to www.freightwaves.com/the Stockout. It's going to be up at the top under newsletters. There it is. First one under supply chains, and you can sign up for that. That's going to be in your inbox every Wednesday at 2:00 Eastern. And then also want to thank today's sponsor, which is Nikola. Discover the future of discover the future of transportation today. Visit Nikola's website and explore their zero emissions Class 8 trucks. Transform your fleet and lead the charge in sustainable logistics. Learn more at nicolamotor.com. So big thanks to Nikola Motor for sponsoring the Stockout for the second month here in a row. And with that, I want to get to the first topic, and I want to throw this to you for your opinion on this. Is Black Friday sort of what it used to be and Cyber Monday what it used to be, or is the season just getting strung too far where it's just those specific days are less important? I mean, I did think it was interesting that this MasterCard data that said on Black Friday, U.S. retail sales up 3.5% versus last year. That sort of suggests, well, it's still pretty important. National Retail Federation was expecting for the full season up between 2.5% and 3.5%. So to me, that sort of suggests, well, maybe it's at the upper end of expectations. But it just seemed like this year, those deals, to the extent there were deals, those were available online well in advance of Black Friday and are still, ongoing.
Yeah, I agree. I saw like a meme making fun of like the fact that they, bring the price back up just to bring it back down for the holiday season, which I cannot confirm or deny. But I think it's, I definitely think that the whole like weekend Cyber Monday aspect is starting to die down. There's a lot of sites that I used to see more of the Cyber Monday deals that just either aren't doing it or just don't seem to focus on that date. So it'd be interesting maybe next week if we have Cyber Monday numbers to see how that truly compares. But I think a lot of it, if they were going to be, of course, focused on this weekend, it was probably that Friday and possibly Saturday too. I know that I think brick and mortar, it sounds like from the survey, got tested a little bit more. So are they going in store? Or are they staying online? It sounds like online is the favor in that conversation. So yeah, I'd have to agree. I think even just over the last couple of months, I've seen pretty good sales opportunities that compare just to what I'm seeing this past weekend. So maybe we'll see more of gift card season after the holidays, some real discounts, but so far nothing where I'm like, oh, that's a deal that someone needs to jump on.
Yeah, and I think Amazon has maybe disrupted some of the seasonal patterns too, with all of its sort of manufactured holidays to bring some of that sales forward. And then the other retailers have responded to Amazon by making their own deal days, like ahead of when Amazon's were. So the seasonality has definitely changed for sure. And I think another thing has changed is this online shopping, which the online shopping is was surging for some time. Really was brought forward, I think, during the pandemic, but really haven't seen much slowing here. Like that MasterCard data I referenced earlier, that was up 3.4% on Black Friday. MasterCard said that their online volume up, or online sales up 14.6% compared to only 0.7% in store. And you were looking at that too, where the online sales continue just to rise much faster than in-store shopping, but that trend doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah, I agree too. I don't know if you caught that too during in the survey as well, but they also brought up like the AI aspect of like the online
Mhm.
shopping, which I thought was interesting as well. How many people were, and also I was reading the survey thinking, why didn't I think of that? I think that was a frustrating moment, but people were using chatbots, ChatGPT, certain AI. Generative AI tools to find online purchases, which there's a couple of statistics I think from some surveys that made me nervous in regards to what we report on. I think on consumer health, right? Like, not only that, right, where people were trying to find deals in the most creative and sophisticated ways possible, but buy now, pay later plans. So, like the Afterpays, the Affirms, let's see, Klarna, I think is the other big one, right? We're
Mhm.
up 8.8% usage from last year, and most of the online shopping was actually powered by that. I think 70% of mobile shopping was fueled, or 79% of that 8% was mobile shopping in particular. So uh, that does make me nervous. The fact that's where we are seeing a big drive and where people are shopping is that because they also get the opportunity to use some of those buy now pay later plans, which again, talk about consumer health. I think this is the second year in a row where we've seen this type of um, cash flow help in order to make the holidays pay off.
Yeah, and if you're wondering what people were buying with their buy now, pay later, we do have a list from the National Retail Federation. So I find this pretty funny. I'll try not to make fun of them too badly, but this is the National Retail Federation. It's a holiday consumer survey conducted by Prosper Insights and Athletics and Analytics. Prosper Insights and Analytics. So for the boys, the top holiday gifts were Legos. Okay, well, that makes sense. Largest toy company in the world. Hot Wheels, number 2. Cars are 3. Well, aren't Hot Wheels cars? The number 4 is video games. Number 5 is PlayStation. Isn't PlayStation a video game? 6, remote control cars, which could have gone under cars. Number 7, video game consoles. That's after 2 slots earlier. PlayStation was number 5. And if PlayStation's not a video game console, I don't know what is. 8 is Nerf. 9 is Spider-Man, which itself is a video game. Maybe they have other things too. And then 10 is trucks. So I guess for boys, video games and toy cars and trucks. And I guess if there's a takeaway there for the freight industry is that video games don't require a lot of freight. I mean, it's a lot of value you could put in one
Yeah.
truck. And to the extent these are software, a lot of those are just digital orders. And so it sort of goes to the thesis of that the peak season maybe is not the traditional holiday peak season as much anymore for these types of holiday gifts that just don't require a lot of space in a truck. And on the girl side, it's the categories are equally done poorly. Barbie is number 1, dolls number 2. Barbie is a doll, and it goes on. But any takeaways from this list? I guess Squishmallows number 10 there. That takes up a lot of space in a truck. Like that would be one of the LTL
True.
ones that have to go on the top of a truck. Squishmallows.
Yeah, a great density point on those squishmallows too. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't pick apart the list until you really put it out there. But you're right. It's uh, or the Barbies, Lego Barbies. We could get even more in depth on this too. But and it's you to bring up the aspect too of fraud. A lot of the stuff that's on here too is high value, depending how likely well palletized too. So I'd say watch out for those electronics in particular, right? Things that are going to get stolen. I know there's a ton of talk about porch pirates out there. If you guys are ordering these things, maybe consider using lockers, Amazon lockers, things of that nature, because all I see on that list is a bunch of stuff I'm sure after you buy now and paid later aren't looking to also file a claim or have that product missing too. So make sure if Santa is layawaying gifts this year, that at least they deliver on time.
Yeah, for freight fraud, I mean, that you bring up a great point. I mean, one thing that's been stolen that I've seen has been Legos. I mean, those are
Yeah.
very high value. Like I've seen, it looks like theft rings of people stealing Legos, and they keep them in warehouses because a lot of those sets are several $100s for a set. It's kind of amazing how expensive they are. But yeah,
And they're
this
probably
makes
pretty
some.
easy to realize are Legos too, because the box, iconically will just probably make that shake noise. So it's not difficult to figure out which box is the Legos, right?
Yeah, yeah, you can move those on eBay and things like that, and the
Yeah.
buyer sort of knows what they're getting because it would be a sealed box. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so a lot going on in shopping right now. Yeah, I want to bring up this next topic, which Trump nominates John Hopkins surgeon, an oncologist, to lead the FDA. So this has implications, I think, for the food companies specifically. So they nominated this oncologist, Marty McCary, to lead the FDA. So this person would, I guess, report to RFK Jr., who's assuming he's confirmed by the Senate, seems likely based on what some of the food industry trade rags are saying. They expect him to be confirmed by a narrow margin. So this guy's on this Marty McCary on the same page as RFK, associated with getting, just sort of cleaning up the food, and not sure he goes as far as to call the current FDA sock puppets the way RFK Jr. has, but he just sort of derided that that they're demonizing natural fats. So he's more thinks natural fats are better and wants to get away from the processed carbs. And so some of the other things that go into this between RFK and McCary, they're expected to eliminate a lot of the processed foods from the school lunches. They've talked about removing the dyes from the cereals, like the FDA has banned this red dye number 3 in cosmetics. So things that go, on topical, like on the skin or in lipstick or things like that. And because it's been linked to cancer in animals, and the FDA says they're going to ban that in food and drug. That seems really likely as a change. But then the two also seem to be against pesticides. They talk about certain pesticides are used on wheat that can cause gluten allergies and celiac disease. They're looking at taking out additives from a lot of the food. Want to crack down on corn syrup, which corn syrup is pretty pervasive in a lot of foods. And they talk about this. Want to stop this cooperation between the food industry and the FDA, really sort of returning the FDA to a true regulator of the industry. And so the question, I guess, becomes, what does all this mean for CPG companies and consumers? And it does seem like it's going to be more cost, at least from my perspective, going to be more cost for the companies, maybe some margin headwinds, and then also just higher costs for consumers, that buy a lot of these, processed foods, at least in the near term, when if there is disruption where formulas have to change and supply chains have to change.
Yeah, what's interesting is I think a big part of this, right, is RFK's push against like the cooperation between the food industry and the FDA. But as we're going through this list of things that could possibly change, at the same time feels like that needs a lot of cooperation between these companies and the FDA to pull off, to truly, I think, pull off. And any you talk about in the near term, I think, yeah, 100%. We're talking about some inflated pricing now. I will say one thing I did read. I think Lunchables did say they're stopping the sale, the special program that they had where they were selling in schools. So part of me wonders, like, how many of these companies have already started to plan for these times or these situations where people start to question some of these certain ingredients and elements in foods. But I think to the extent or the push of what at least RFK has talked in the past, and what that department could bring on to the FDA or government regulation too, I think is pretty huge. So to say that there won't be near term, I think inflation from this is hard uh, to I guess wrap my head around. I think there's going to be a lot of change, which would mean I think consumers right paying that bill. Potentially, maybe we see reduced margins, but at the same time, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but this would just be a huge change in how a lot of these companies work. Not just, of course, like for the margin sake of it, but just like the supply chains. I think of how they get these ingredients and the partners that they use for that. I would assume it would be pretty much close to a complete overhaul of how a lot of these companies are processing.
Yeah, I think maybe the reason that Lunchable is no longer in school foods is because of Rachel Premack's article where she called them
Yeah,
disgusting. I don't think they could recover from that one. I want to move on to the next topic here. SNAP program could be upended under Trump. Currently, 34 million SNAP recipients, although I've seen stats where it's over 40 million. Republican study calls for a 22% cut to SNAP. Could be spending caps. Some have suggested there should be like harvest boxes, sort of prepackaged boxes that they send to low-income people with food instead of giving them cards to pick out what they want to pick out. Not surprisingly, National Grocers Association has come out against this in the past. And then there were some interesting stats on where SNAP dollars are spent, which we would think this would have a negative impact on retailers. About 25.8% are spent at Walmart, Kroger about 9%, Albertsons about 6.5%, Costco 6.2%. So it's not too out of proportion to total grocery sales, among those top few retailers. But then there's also a significant amount spent at 7-Eleven and dollar stores, sort of in that 2 to 3% range. There could be changes to what is allowed to be spent, with those cards. But do you view this as a significant risk to the either CPG or retailers?
uh, most definitely. I think this is an interesting topic, just in general. I think is interesting to consider, right? Cutting in this area. I think the interesting part about harvest boxes, in particular, is I just know a lot of food nonprofits already are helping with those types of things. So I don't think that's the band aid at all to these situations. But and also where it's being spent, I think is in question. But also, as you and I have talked about on the show, Walmart I think is in great value as well. Their brand is cheap and good, pretty good quality for what you're paying for. So while I'm not too surprised by that market share that Walmart has with them as well. And uh, again, there's even talk about dollar stores and things like that. It's a lot of the individuals on these programs too are also in food deserts. So again, that could be an issue with some of where the spending is taking place as well. But yeah, I would personally would hope to not see it, or at least see a better placement for it if that's up for determination. But I think near term, of course, it'll definitely be a risk to a number of these companies as well. And definitely a risk. I mean, we brought up Dollar Store numerous times, right? I think it also is a huge risk for just that company and a number of dollar stores in particular that are out there too. So definitely something that this administration's got the CPG industry, I think, on its toes a little bit in regards to those two last areas, right?
For sure. And another thing I'll keep you on your toes is SONAR. Can we go through 3 SONAR
Yeah.
charts in 1 minute? Maybe this was poor clock management. But for the first one here, Ocean Import Volume TEU Index, I think this was an interesting one, where this is ocean bookings at the point of origin, typically China. And you see the white line is 2024 and not seeing a big drop off seasonally like you typically see this late in the year into December. And it just suggests that shippers are moving things late in the year ahead of potential tariffs next year. And so that's really something that pull forward is something that we're seeing in the data. The next one here is the Baltic Freight Index, the sort of that spread between China to the U.S. West Coast and China to the U.S. East Coast. That is sort of normalized. It did collapse to basically zero for about, let's call it almost 2 months, but that's sort of returned. So that suggests that goods are a little bit less time sensitive. Now that spread is a little bit higher, and it's more costly again to ship all the way through the Panama Canal into the East Coast. So sort of eliminating what was kind of a temporary anomaly there. And then the third one here suggests that there's some improvement in the freight market. There's a little bit more than seasonally. So this is the tender rejection rate in green on the left axis, and truckload line haul rate in white. And you see that line haul rate for this line haul spot rate does increase every sort of end of the year, like we are seeing now. But here it's on a little bit stronger, tender rejection rate as well, which suggests that maybe we are seeing something in terms of improvement in the freight market.
Yeah. Good stuff. I assume I will have a lot of this in the Stockout newsletter too. So make sure that you guys go and join that, and also join the Fraud Watch newsletter as well. That goes out on Thursdays at 3:30. And other than that, everyone, and enjoy your last few days. You only got a few days to go Christmas shopping, a couple weeks here. So go get that done, and we'll chat with you guys all next week.